right, our next topic: universal wealth principles. Wealth isn't just about money; it's about mindset, habits, and legacy. In this conversation, we break down the core principles that lead to financial stability and abundance: saving before spending, leveraging income streams, protecting assets, and planting seeds for generational wealth. These truths apply whether you're just getting started or already building an empire. Let's dive into it.
Why are Jewish people so wealthy? As a rookie stockbroker in the mid 1980s, I was fascinated by how my Jewish clients and colleagues handle money. Their mindset about wealth was totally different than what I saw growing up in a predominantly African American environment. So I got curious. I started asking questions and listening and learning. Then I read a book called The Jewish Phenomenon by Steven Silbiger, and it all started making sense. Get this. Jews make up only 2.4% of the US population, but over 30% of American millionaires are Jewish. So the question is, why? What's their secret? I want to share 8 things I learned from my Jewish clients that transformed the way I thought about money. Here's the first 4. Number 1, they prioritized generational wealth and avoided single generation consumption. Whether they were religious or not, many of them lived by Proverbs 13:22, which says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." You see, they saw money as a tool to empower the next generation, not to just fund their own lifestyle. Number 2, they gave assets, not appliances. You see, when I got married, I got toasters and china, and I didn't even have a china cabinet. But several Jewish clients of mine told me, they said, in our families, we give cash or stocks. In other words, they gifted wealth to their loved ones, not stuff. Things that appreciate, not depreciate. Number 3, they expected to be wealthy and were embarrassed by it if they weren't. See, I grew up where struggle was normal and wealth was rare. But in the Jewish American culture, financial success was normal and struggle was rare. There was a pride in building wealth and a shame in mismanaging it. That totally changed my mindset. Number 4, they use their pain as fuel, not an excuse. Now this one hit me hard. Jewish people have faced horrific oppression, very much like African Americans have. But instead of being paralyzed by the past, they use their pain as fuel for success. And that's exactly what my people, African Americans, need to do.
Hey, so this is a heavy topic. Is a lot. We're gonna have to break this down because so we just gonna go with the first 4
Right.
principles that
And
he
we go come
talked
back to
about.
y'all later with the next 4 in the next episode.
I mean, because it's a very interesting dynamic that he raises as as you look at our culture and compare it to the Jewish community. And why is it that I think we said Jewish people are only 13% of
A very significantly
yeah, a
small
very
percentage.
significant
I think
small
he said
percentage.
2.4%.
Oh, okay, it was even
But they
smaller.
but they represent 30%
But
of
they represent 30% of the wealth in America, and it's like you have to ask you got to ask the question like, why is that? Like,
hmm
how does that get to be the way that it is, and why have we haven't able to come together to thrive?
hmm
Like everyone else was able to turn things around, whether it was the Asians in the concentration camps,
Jews in the
whether the
Holocaust,
Jews in the Holocaust, whether it was
even the Hispanics in whatever atrocities they had to go through
yeah,
from colonization.
all over. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Every group has had some atrocity done to them
the
by the
people over the
colonizers.
colonizers. Then you got the people over in and what you call it, Ukraine, which was formerly part of the Soviet Union and yada yada yada. Then you got Serbia and all that, fighting over there. It's like all the people were able to galvanize and get past that, except for us. And so these, you have to ask yourself, like, why? Why? What are we doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing that's not working? And so, one of the points that he brought up was prioritizing wealth over prioritizing generational wealth over personal consumption,
Mm-hmm.
which was a very good point. I think he made.
That's a very good point because it comes back to the ugly, unsettling truth that wealth begins at home. And I say it's an ugly, unsettling truth because it means that we are going to have to operate from a different set of principles, foreign to us, at least initially. I know a lot of times when we having these types of conversations, specifically with our people, we somewhat get offended because again we're being told that we're doing something wrong, and then we're being compared to these quote unquote white people or Jewish people. But the reality is, if your son or your daughter was in school and they wasn't doing well, but we can identify through observation that, let's just say these four students over there always get A's, then we would tell our child, go study with them.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to what they're doing. What principles do they operate from? What habits do they use?
Yeah, you definitely ask the stronger people to tutor your kids.
Yeah, that's what we would do. So when it comes to finances, it's the same applies. So if we can identify through observation a specific group that's quote unquote making it happen, in this case the Jewish community, again, what are the principles? What are the habits that they're living by that allow them to be 2.4% of the population but represent 30% of the millionaires?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something specific that they're doing. And as you said, the first thing is they prioritize generational wealth over single generation personal consumption. And that means that they are making a conscious decision to invest
and secure life insurance.
Well, one of the types of investment assets that they will use is life insurance. So it could be life insurance, real estate, stocks, but they are prioritizing putting money into those things on the front end. Like as how we would prioritize paying our bills on time, they prioritize investing, their money, the first slice.
Mm-hmm.
Not the bottom, not what's left, but what comes in first. So an accountant principle, first in, first out, FIFO. That's how they treat their money when it comes to investing. So the first thing they do with they getting their money, they putting it aside, they putting a percentage of it aside so that they can invest it. But that again, that's a principle. So the principle in this case would be prioritizing wealth generation over single generation personal consumption. But then the habit would be every time some new money hits my bank account, I'm gonna put 30% of that into my capital investment account, and then I'm gonna put it into whatever investments I'm working on at the time. Could be stocks, could be real estate, could be business systems, could be life insurance, whatever you fancy. But that's how they're able to. The rich keep getting richer, and the poor keep getting poorer. Habits, principles, and habits.
Right. And then the next point, which is a good segue. You say principle and habits. Um, Putting value in assets and not appliances.
That's actually was a good one.
You know what I mean? So like having assets, home, land, property, stocks, trust funds, and things like that. Assets, things that appreciate with time, not depreciate, and not no appliances. You know what I'm saying?
Well, specifically, he was saying when it comes to when they gather.
Yeah, that's yeah.
You know what I mean? So when they having their bar mitzvahs, their weddings, anything, when we're seeing on TV shows, when we're seeing this stuff, and they're handing these people these envelopes, and people are purposely coming to hand these envelopes. They're looking forward to handing these envelopes.
That's your duty.
That's your duty, right? And so, but again,
because you got an envelope.
You got an envelope, right? So it's like they're giving assets. So a new couple, they're not just giving them China. Like he said, somebody gave me China. I didn't even have a China cabinet.
Right.
So it's like so the money that you spending on the China, the money that you spending on whatever you go spend on for these couples, like, no, Use the same amount of money. So if your commitment was to only spend $25, and just give them $25.
Mm-hmm.
If your commitment was to go spend $1,000 on this fine china set, then don't buy the fine china set. Just give them $1,000.
Yeah.
But for some reason in our community, we seem to have a problem with giving people cash.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's shamed. It's frowned upon,
Which is backwards.
which is backwards in why we don't build generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
again, principal, assets, not appliances. Habit, when you're going to, in our case, let's just say somebody's birthday, the cookout. Imagine you're going to little Timmy's 16th birthday, or little Samantha's 16th birthday, and instead of everything, a table full of just all these beautifully wrapped gifts, it's the same table, but it's just a whole bunch of envelopes full of cash.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way they do kind of circumvent the past and become productive and valuable in society because they understand they understand assignment,
Yes.
to put it in layman's terms. They understand the assignment that, all right, this is a bar mitzvah. Everyone gets a bar mitzvah. Everyone will turn 16. That's the age when you go from childhood to adulthood. Puberty or whatever the case you want to call it.
It's
And
like,
s-
oh my bad, I thought you was done. Keep going.
and so therefore, it's a time where the families come together and everybody coming. And I don't know if you notice about bar mitzvah is solely for you to bring money
Yes.
to the person that's coming into adulthood. And us as the Jewish community, we're going to make sure you are right. It's our responsibility to make sure that you are okay and that you are stepping out into adulthood with the means and resources to be successful and to compete with who else out there is out there. And so like you were saying, like, so at these bar mitzvahs, you got your aunt bringing, she giving you $20,000, somebody give you $10,000. Like a person could lead a bar mitzvah with at least $100,000. For them to do it, ain't for you to do whatever you want. It ain't for you to go get no car and
Mm-hmm.
no rims and a sectional and a flat screen TV. That's not what it's for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's not what they're doing, but that's what we probably would do.
For example, I saw a clip once where it was a mortgage broker, and he was in New York, and he was talking about he had this 18-year-old Jewish kid just graduated from high school, and he was trying to buy an apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told him, like, I'm gonna need $200,000 in order to complete this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
He says the Jewish kid said, "I'll be back in 2 days."
Mm-hmm.
2 days later, kid shows back up to the office with a cashier's check for the full freight.
Mm.
Then, of course, he's flabbergasted, like, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
god!" Like, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is my bar mitzvah money." So he was able to buy a multi-unit apartment complex in New York, put the down payment down with his bar mitzvah money.
See, and that's what bar mitzvah money is for. That's what it's for. Like, we got to implement. That's why I like the Kwanzaa principle so much, because it gives us something to focus on and to
Universal cultural principles.
aspire to do. And it's like that brings us to the next point that he made, that we have to expect to be wealthy. There's no other alternative.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have this contentment
The meek shall inherit
with
the earth.
mediocrity. We can't have this contentment with the hood and poor and
And struggle.
poverty and struggle mills and all that. We can't have that contentment with that. We
You wear it
gotta,
like a badge of honor.
yeah, like, yeah, I'm from the hood. Like, we ate syrup sandwiches. Like, sorry to hear that, bro. The syrup tastes real good on a waffle. You know that, right?
Mhm.
But we all been there, and it's just we just gotta somehow galvanize ourselves to get on the same page where we can start doing things like this. That's what I was saying about the whole Black History Month thing. Like, even if we start with, like, that month of Black History Month will be the month where all families each family will have a get together within that month,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll pick something and endeavor, as a family to go into, or to set something up, set up a trust. Everybody put in, or even if you have a trust already, like, during Black History Month, that's the month that we, you saved what you saved all year, and everyone has a certain amount to put in each year, and that's come Black History Month, that's the month you put it in there.
Hmm.
Or it could be one person. We pick one person in the family who's trying to do X, Y, and Z. Whoever got a business plan and got an idea, and the Black History Month is the month that the whole families get together. We see, and we were like, all right, here go my $500. Here go my 500. I got 1,000 on that. Hey, I actually, I've been doing good. I got 5 G's on that. Go ahead and make that happen.
Hmm.
And then, we start doing stuff like that in small increments, it will avalanche into a big and an enormous, snowball, which will render and ripple out, for years to come, generation to generation.
I've noticed that the Jewish community, specifically the men, they, like you said, they take that whole verse, I'm gonna leave an inheritance for my children's children. Seriously, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
all the men in that community operate through that principle.
Because you know why? It's taught to them as kids. That's why they go to Jewish schools.
Yeah, the
That's why
synagogues
they
and
go
stuff
to
right there, right?
synagogues, because that's what's being taught to them. Like if it ain't in you at a young age, you're not going to be able to be taught that at 35
Mm-hmm.
and retain and be like, all right, I'm gonna do that because you're not used to
Through the
thinking like
grace of
that.
God,
You're not used to thinking. That's why we gotta, like we said, we gotta gear the beta generation
wealth
you,
begins at
to
home.
be better.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Implementing the stems and education and all these practices of finance and wealth. And like he said in that third point, it's an embarrassment to the Jewish community if you come up and you don't take advantage
mm-hmm.
of the resources. If you are poor,
Mm-hmm.
that's embarrassment. Like like, oh no, like, because we done gave you the template.
Mm-hmm.
You got the supportive community.
You
How
got the
you
resources,
got the
you got
resources?
the
Like,
connections.
you must be degenerate. Like, if you don't take advantage of this, we set the stage for you. So it is a level of embarrassment if you don't achieve the wealth status.
Mm-hmm.
And that's those things that we have to think about and implement and try to find a way to implement it. We don't have to do it exactly like they culture
Of
do it,
course not.
but we do it what works for us. Just like we said, every good wife is not going to be a cookie cutter of the same for each man, because each man wants a different type of cookie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Some like sugar cookies, some like chocolate chips, some like oatmeal raisin.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a cookie, it's pretty much going to be in that circle shape. You know what I'm saying? That's the only cookie cutter shape you got, is the shape of the cookie. You
Right.
don't get that shape.
Right.
Now, whatever the ingredients in that cookie, that's up to you and your preferences.
So principle in this case is,
Hmm.
again, expect an expectation to be wealthy.
Yeah.
And the habit in this case can be things like you setting X amount of minutes a day to read about personal finance and
Yes.
investing. It could be you guys having some sort of financial literacy nights.
Hmm.
Maybe one night a month, all y'all come together and y'all study some wealth principle topic, trust, life insurance, stock investing. Like, it doesn't matter, but like, it isn't just gonna happen overnight, and it's not gonna happen by you just thinking about it. You're gonna have to put the work in. And so if you want to execute these if you want to live by these principles and then have the habits to support these principles, you're gonna have to put the work in. And you're gonna have to make a sacrifice. So going back to what we kind of discussed prior, there's a difference between changing and transforming. So changing just means you're doing things differently. Transformation means you're being something differently. So in order to, expect to be wealthy, you're gonna have to be wealthy
Hmm.
and not be meek, or not be, well, what did I say last time? Or mediocre in regards to doing the bare minimum, and the
Hmm.
bare minimum in this case being like just making sure you got enough money to pay your bills on time, buy a couple of wham whams and zuzus that you like, so you can just enjoy your time here on earth.
Right.
Because again, you only live once. YOLO.
And so the fourth point that he made was they use their pain as fuel
Mm,
and not an excuse.
it's a big
That
one.
spoke volumes to me. Because as our community, like I said, there's we're not exempt from going through any hardships. There's other communities and races that have been through things just as treacherous as the things that we've been through, and they all seem to turn things around for the better,
Hmm.
so to speak. And things are slightly better. They're not absolute the same for us, but we still have a long way to go. And I think one thing that gets us caught up is that we use the pain and the atrocities that we've been through as excuses
Yes.
to why we can't survive or thrive. Where we should be using it as fuel, as the fuel we need to be, practical and intentional.
Intentional.
That's the word I'm looking for. Jesus Christ, thank you.
That is the important.
Right. We got to use that as the fuel to be intentional about our wealth
Hmm.
and our generations and legacies to come after us. We have to be intentional about it, not just self-centered and self-absorbed with personal consumption.
Yes.
Like they said, we have to be intentional, and we have to understand that there's a dark side that we came through and went through, but we know that. Don't reflect. Don't forget about that or ignore that,
Hmm.
but use it as your fuel. Because we went through that, I gotta stand 10 toes down that more on these principles, as whatever the Kwanzaa principles, whether it's these principles that he's talking about in the Jewish community, whatever the principles that you set for your family and your household, you got to be 10 toes down even more, because we came from a harsh start. We
Hmm.
did have a lot of injustices brought on us, so therefore I have to fight for the opposite of that, eat that much harder,
Yes.
not just keep perpetuating and reliving the trauma that we've been through
Generation after generation.
after generation.
So, excellent point. Use that fuel as fire to power you forward, and a good way of looking at that. So again, principle. Pain is fuel. Use the pain as fuel, not as a excuse. So habit, when you're doing whatever you're doing and you reach those moments of self doubt where you question your ability, again, tap into that pain. Tap into it and give. That's what's gonna give you that inspiration to keep going, because it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be challenging, especially if you kind of starting late, as they would say. But starting late is better than not starting at all.
Facts.
So get started, no matter where you're at in your life. If this is seriously something that you want to instill in your family, especially when it comes to our community. Because again, wealth begins at home. So if we start in every household that begins to get on this quote unquote frequency, like you said, 20 years, as you said, 20 years down the line, the conversation will be totally different.
Totally.
The
Totally
language will be
different.
totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we started this Gen Beta in this case, and that's what I'm saying. We are at a great place in history right now because we have an opportunity to really see these things happen in real time.
Yeah.
So take these principles. In my opinion, it'd be best for us to take these principles as well as the Kwanzaa principles and just mash them together into our own principles, and just literally as a community, as a culture, like this is what we own now. Just like the
Mm-hmm.
Jewish community, you know, the primary aim, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So let that be now our song that we dance to moving forward. Let
Mm-hmm.
that be the beat of our drum for our whole community. Every man, that's how we moving. That's how we operating. And I know that if we do that, then again, greener pastures are ahead.
I agree.